So in this structure Kasia was showing you, all this blue is DNA. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. So the phrase deoxy comes from the fact that on this sugar, which is a component of the sugar phosphate backbone of DNA, there's not an oxygen on that position. An oxygen is depicted in this image as red. So there's no oxygen on this position, which is called the 2' position. But this polymerase is busy putting in a ribonucleotide, which in DNA is a mistake, because at that same 2' position, there is an oxygen. And this is typical of RNA, but not DNA. That's bad news for a cell, potentially, because chemistry teaches us that if there's an oxygen on this position, it can lead to breakage of the DNA. And so organisms that have DNA as the storage medium for genetic information try to avoid putting ribonucleotides into the DNA, because that would potentially break the DNA and lead to either mutations or cell death. So what we're trying to understand is how DNA polymerases incorporate or do not incorporate the incorrect sugar into DNA. And that subject started 4 years ago with the work of a summer student like Andrew, working with a postdoc in the lab, who discovered to our amazement that the DNA polymerases that are busy replicating the nuclear genome in higher organisms like humans put a lot of ribonucleotides in the DNA. That was a big surprise. And so what we've done since that summer of 2009 is spend a very large amount of time, by the people around the table here, trying to understand how the ribonucleotides get in, how many of them get into DNA, where they are in DNA, and how they're removed from DNA, and lastly, if they're not removed, what kind of either good or bad consequences might that have for a cell, including a human. And a reason why that is very, very interesting in terms of the biomedical community is that we know that the enzymes that, if this is ribo is accidentally put into the DNA, the humans have enzymes that remove it. And it was discovered as far back as 2006 that the enzyme that removes ribonucleotides from DNA, if it's defective in human beings, they get an autoimmune disease. So there's human health implications to this whole subject area.